Hello everyone, my name is ZMarie. I wanted to welcome you all today to Heart for Art. And today we're going to be learning how to draw praying hands. It's going to be a digital drawing, so sit back and let's get started. Hi everyone, welcome back to Heart for Art Live. Today we're going to be learning how to draw praying hands. And I first want to thank everyone for coming and joining and watching on today. So I'm going to try and do it step by step with you. I'm not going to do the whole time-lapse deal. So I'm going to try and go step by step so you can actually see how to draw it. So I'm going to be using the digital tablet, and I'll show you all how you can actually get your own. Closer to the end, I'll explain that a little bit more. And so it's going to be a digital drawing of praying hands, and it's actually easier with this because you can color the drawing and all that actually on the on the software. So I'm going to go on over to our sketch pad now so we can get on started. Alrighty. So now I'm first going to start by just simply picking, what I want to use. So I just simply start off by using a pencil, like a regular pencil. And then we're going to start off simply by drawing the outline to your picture, which is always good to do first. Start by drawing the outline because, of course, if you shade first, it's kind of impossible. So we're first going to start off choosing our pencil here. And then we're going to start off by just looking at our picture here on the right of us. And we're just going to start by simply drawing the outline. I always start from the top, so it's best to see where you want to start from, but I usually start from the very top depending on the drawing. And so I'm simply going to just do the outline here. And you don't have to make it look exactly like how I'm drawing it. It's all in how you want to draw it. So I'm just going to start off by doing step by step, drawing our outline of the entire drawing, and then we'll get into actually coloring it and shading it and all of that too as well. So just simply start by doing that. And you don't have to use the pencil that I'm using. You can simply use a marker, as many different settings. If you have just regular paint on your computer, you can still use the digital drawing tablet to do that too. So it's all in how you want to do it that way too. So all right. So let's keep drawing our outline here. And it's actually a bit easier using the digital tablet, but if you don't have one, you don't have to use that. You can always use just a regular pencil and sketch pad. You can do the exact same thing. So it's always easier to simply get our outline first and then go into shading and coloring and all of that too as well. But it's not mandatory to use a digital drawing tablet, although it is probably a bit easier, but I'm going to be using regular sketchpad as we keep going. But for this specific drawing, I'm going to do it using the digital drawing tablet, and I'll actually show you all how you can get your own as well. A little closer to the end, I'll explain that a little bit more for you. So you're just going to keep doing this right here. And it's always good to figure out, as I said before, find out which angle you want to go from. Because if you just start, let's say if we started from the bottom, it'd be a little bit tougher. So I always start from the part that seems like the most, you can say, complex. So since I see that the fingers would take a little longer, that's why I start from the top. But you can start from the bottom, it's up to you. But that's kind of my preference usually when I'm drawing. And I'm just simply still using the same pencil to do all of this as well. And you can do this with a regular drawing pencil, a regular 2B pencil, a regular number 2 pencil. You can do that as well. So you don't have to do it digital. It's just kind of the way we're doing it this time. All right, we're almost done drawing our outline. But it's always easiest to get your outline first, though. That's just kind of, the easiest thing to do, okay? And of course, we all make mistakes, so I'm just erasing a little bit. If something looks a little weird, just got to fix that there. So, all righty. Just fixing a few errors. But yeah, it's definitely easier to have your reference drawing right near you, unless you're the type where you draw off the top of your head, that's different. But if I were to draw something from a picture I've seen, it's always good to have it right near you, print it out, or on the digital, on your computer, tablet, whatever, or what have you. All right, so now I'm trying to finish the bottom down here. And I'm going to show you all how to actually color it and all of that too. So we're going to get to that. All right. Got to make sure we get it as even as you can so you don't have to come back and erase. Because it's a bit, kind of time consuming if you have to go back and kind of correct the same part of the drawing. So it's easiest to go back. Of course, you know, you can see I'm making a few mistakes and I have to erase, but that's okay. So we're just gonna fix that and keep going, and we're almost done with the sleeve down here. All right. Just gonna do this. I'm gonna do both sleeves. And if you want to, like how they have it kind of like a boxed image, it's a bit easier if you want to make the drawing look exactly like the reference drawing. It's a bit easier to do it in kind of a square template. So when I'm drawing it, I'm kind of keeping in mind that it looks like a picture. So I want it to stay looking like a picture. So you'll see I kind of square it off throughout the entire drawing, so that just kind of helps. Just simple kind of tips to help along the way. All right. Making sure we got that about down. All right. Make sure I'm not blocking y'all so you can see. All righty. And usually when I'm doing drawings like this, usually start off by shading, then we'll go to color, or you can shade with the color. But like if you want to make certain lines like where it seems like the light is showing, like you can see on the fingers, one part is brighter than the next, that's where you would use shading in that case, okay? So, just trying to make sure I got the whole outline of everything down. Fix any errors or any mistakes that I want to go back and fix. Alrighty. All right, and you can always go back and darken your lines after you got in the basic outline. Then that's when you can go back and darken lines and all that, because you may not want one part to be darker than the next. So I would suggest you wait until after you get the outline and then go back and darken everything and all that as well too, okay? All righty, right. All right. So you can simply darken the sleeves and all of that, like where you see the black marks on the sleeve, or it looks like it's black, then that's where you can just use your pencil and make that part darker than the rest of the drawing and all of that as well. So I'm gonna start by now trying to see if I can start shading, since we have our basic outline, and fixing any errors or anything that looks, you know, kind of crooked and weird. We're gonna fix that before we go to shading so it doesn't mess up anything in the end too, okay? All right, I think we pretty much got the outline down. Just fixing minor errors. It just all helps in the end, so it doesn't mess up your drawing, you know, the final draft of your drawing. So that's kind of the main part of drawing. The outcome is the most fun part. So anything that may seem like it's gonna mess that part up, then it's best to go ahead and fix it when you see it, okay? All right, now we're just going back and doing a little bit of detail on the fingers and on the hands here at the top. And the parts that we see look a little darker, that's the parts that we're gonna make darker, just so it'll look like the light is actually reflecting on the hands, okay? All right, just gonna take our time with doing this so we don't mess up the other parts of the drawing. But it always helps if one part looks lighter than the next, it helps to just do it with a pencil at first and then go back and color it. So if it's like a part that you wanted like a shadow was on it, then I would suggest you do that with just using your pencil first and then go back and add color and all that in the end. It's best just to, you know, do that first before you go and jump to coloring. So now I'm just making a few of my lines a bit darker. Righty. And if you want to get darker lines and it doesn't seem like the pencil is giving you those darker lines, if you're using a regular pencil, you can just go to a higher number. So like, let's say if you have a 2B pencil, if you go to 4B, it'll be darker than the 2B. So you can do that. Or on here, since I'm actually using the digital drawing tablet, the harder you press down, the darker it actually makes the pencil when you're drawing. So you can do it either one of those ways, or you can get, you know, a marker to make it darker. It's all in your preference. All right. Trying to make sure we got all our dark lines that we need to be darkened before we can move on with shading or anything like that. So, all right. And I'm going to show you all actually how to shade it, how to color it, all of that in this episode, as much as I can, okay? Before we run out of time or anything like that, I'm going to show you all as much as we can, okay? All right. Just trying to make sure we got the basic outline before we move on to doing the deeper part of shading and all of that. But we're simply just going back and adding a bit more detail now. If the hands have nails or anything like that, now would be a good time to start adding that. So, you won't forget and end up coloring it a different color, and it makes just the whole drawing look weird. So now is a good time to go back and add any detail that you may want to add to your picture. And as I said before, it is good to have a reference picture there with you. But if you're if you're going off the top of your head, that's a bit different. But yeah, anytime that I'm drawing, I always like to have my reference right next to me, so it'll be easier for me to see too. So, all right, so now we're just going to go back and shade everything a little bit, make the dark areas dark, and leave the light areas kind of alone right now. All right. And simply using an eraser, if it's a dark part that you want to make lighter, then that's a good time to use the eraser. Just kind of slightly brush over the top to make it look like it's shaded, okay? So even if you're using it on a regular sketch pad, it's best if you want to make your lines look shaded, or if you made it too dark, just get an eraser and dab the drawing. Don't erase the entire part and start over, because then when you get those lines all in your drawing and all of that, you can tell at the end, and it just kind of messes it up, makes it look rough. So, all right? So now I'm mainly focusing on darkening the lines or anything that looks like a shadow. That's the part that we're going to darken right now. As you can see, his hands right here, the part that looks dark. And you can use anything. Let's say if you're using the digital drawing software, for this part you can use like a marker or a pen. But if you're using a sketch pad, like a sketchbook, I wouldn't suggest you use a pen, because it just it doesn't look that well. So even if you just used a marker or something like that, then I would suggest you use that. And any part that's a different color, like a gray, then that's what I'm going to use to make some of my parts a little lighter than the next, just so it won't all be the same color and it looks like, like you're trying to make it look like the other drawing. So, all right. So it's always good to see like what colors the reference image is using, so you can see like what colors actually add to your drawing. So it just helps in all of that too as well, okay? All right. Just gonna darken our lines a bit more, since we see that this part is mainly black. Some parts are gray, but this part is primarily black. So just do all the black parts right here down at the bottom, coloring in as much as we can. All right. And it also helps with using the digital drawing software. This is just a regular like sketch program that I'm using right here, but you can use it with paint and all of that. But it helps because you can actually go over beside the reference drawing and get the paint dripper and just select the color. And then when you go to your side to draw or to color it in, it's already that color, so you don't have to try and figure out what color was being used. So, all right. So now I'm just selecting the different colors, make some parts darker, make some parts lighter, so it actually look like it's shaded. And of course, if I make anything too dark, you just get your eraser and go back and do it that way too. But yeah, primarily on this one, we're gonna do the digital drawing, but as we go on, I'm gonna actually use a hand sketch pad. So for those who don't have the digital drawing software, it'd be a little more convenient using this, regular sketch pad. But I'll actually show you how you can get a hold of the digital drawing pads, because if one of the tutorials, if we actually, use one, you actually just have one on hand. So it's always good to just have one on hand. All right. We're just going back, adding a bit of color. Parts that seem darker, kind of make those a bit darker. And the parts that need to be lighter, just gonna erase them to make them a bit lighter. All right. And you can make it whatever color you want it to be, but I wanted to look as close as my reference drawing, so I just got the paint dripper so I can get the exact color that the drawing actually was, and it makes the outcome look, as close to the reference as possible. But if you want it to be your own thing, then you don't have to do it those exact colors. If you want it to look like the black, you can also get like a navy blue, so that just always helps that way. All right. So just going back, adding a bit more detail and switching some of my, tools to make, like if something needs to be a bit darker, I won't use the pencil, I'll try to use the marker or something like that. So I'm simply just changing and getting the color to that so we can continue the shading process, and so the outcome will look as close to the drawing as we possibly can. And now is a good time to darken any lines, because now we're actually getting down to the part where we're about to start shading and coloring and all of that. So now is a good time to go back and make any corrections that you want to make, or fix any lines or shade anything like that. So just adding a bit more detail always helps. So now just mainly focusing on the lines in the hand, because you can see where it's like the veins in the hand. But as I'm drawing, I'm going to show you actually how to make, how you see it looks kind of like a shadow on one part of his hand, and then it looks like the light is shining on another part, and that all comes from, how you shade and all that. So I'm actually showing you how to do that too. But mainly just focusing on making the lines as detailed and as close as possibly can. Make sure I'm not blocking so you all can see it. All right. Now I'm going back now and just shading and making it as close to the reference drawing as possible. Again, the darkest lines. I usually will start with the darker lines. So if I need to go back and make it look like a lighter line, then I can just simply erase. And when you're doing it like this, it's best to use like a gray, because you don't want it like straight black. If you're trying to make it like a pencil shade, you don't want to use just like a straight black, okay? All right. So all this part right here, we can see on the reference drawing how it looks like it's a shade. So I'm just making all of this right here gray, all this whole side of the hand over here gray. All right. And going back and doing details in between the lines on the hand also helps to make it look a bit more realistic in the end. So all of this helps for the outcome of the picture. So just kind of preparing for the outcome of the picture. So, all right. Adding any detail or any shading that needs to be added now. So when we get to the actual adding of the color, it won't be, a hindrance to have to go back and do the same thing. So. And as you can see, the color I'm using, it looks kind of like a navy blue. And so this part right here, that's mainly what we're doing right there. And now I'm about to stop right here because I'm about to go to break. And we'll actually continue this drawing when we come back from the commercial break. And I'm actually show you how to do the coloring of the entire picture. So now it's down to like the kind of most detailed part. So stay tuned so you can get a great outcome of your picture and make it, the way that you want it to make it. You don't have to do it exactly how I'm drawing it. And if you just have a regular sketch pad or anything like that, you could do it the same way that I'm doing it. Get you some colored pencils, because now we're about to start doing the coloring right after this break, okay? See y'all in a bit. Welcome back, guys, to Heart for Art Live. Now, last time we just left off before the break and all that good stuff, we were shading the hands. So now I'm actually about to show you all how to add color to the hands of the praying hands drawing too. So let's go ahead over to our sketch pad and let's go ahead and continue where we left off. All right. So when we left off, you can see that I'm darkening the lines on the right side of the hand. And any parts I need to make lighter, I'm simply using my eraser. That just helps to make it look more like it's shaded and more like the light is shining on it, okay? All right. Any parts that you need, any piece of the drawing or part of the drawing that you need to go back and darken the lines and all of that, now is a good time to start doing that. Okay? So I'm simply just going to go step by step, showing you actually how to shade it to make it look more realistic overall at the end, okay? Alright. Any of the lines that I need to make a bit darker, I'm just going to simply make those a bit darker. Alright. And as you can see, I'm just shading a specific part on the thumb, not the entire thumb, because this part looks like it's darker than the rest. So I'm going to first do that. Make that part a bit darker. Alright. Just making a few corrections on sides that I want it to make a bit darker as well and lighter. Right. And now I'm using more of like a straight black. I use the navy blue for the right side of the hand just because that shadow looks a bit different than the rest. So now, just adding a bit more detail and a bit more shading before we start coloring the drawing or adding a bit more color to it, okay? As you can see, I'm darkening the fingers, the outline of the finger, so when we do add our color, it won't get hidden behind the color, okay? You can still see he has fingers, okay? So now is a good time to start darkening your lines, your outlines. If you want to darken the entire outline of the whole hand drawing that you've done thus far, that's okay too, just so it doesn't clash when you start doing the coloring. Alright, so mainly just focusing on darkening the lines a bit more. And I did want to make sure that I say, if you are artists or if you know someone who wants to get their designs on different paraphernalia and things like that, you can actually go over to smicapp.com, that's SMICAPP.com, and simply click on Would Prosper, and you can actually put your designs on t-shirts or anything like that. So I'm going to tell you all a bit about that more when we're finished with the drawing, okay? All right. So now just focusing on a bit more detail before we go to coloring. Shading a few lines, darkening a few lines. All of this helps. All of this helps. All right. And if you do need to switch your tools, to make your pencil darker, if you need to change the color, then you can do that as well. Don't try not to use the same pencil throughout the entire drawing, especially if you want to make certain parts darker. Go to a darker pencil, okay? All right. So we're just mainly focusing on darkening some of the lines and shading it a bit more. And as you can see, I'm using different colors and things like that, and I'm going back to my tool that I showed before where it just makes the hand wave a bit more, just makes the veins and everything look more realistic. And you can do that, so I'm just kind of brushing that across the drawing. So it actually look like veins and not just harsh lines, okay? All right. Just doing that a bit more detail on the fingers, on the entire hand. So this is the kind of tool where you can just wipe across the whole drawing. So there's nothing wrong with that. It won't really mess up the drawing in that way. It just makes the lines look a bit more realistic, okay? And you can do this with your eraser by just kind of dabbing your lines that you've drawn already. It just makes it not look like a harsh line, okay? That's completely your choice, but that does help it make it look a bit more realistic. All right? Now, adding a little bit more detail before we move on. And I'm using an airbrush and things like that, but if you don't have an airbrush, if you're using just a sketch pad and a pencil, you can just simply get your pencil and do slight brush strokes on part that you want to make look darker or lighter. And if you make it too dark, as I said before, you can get your eraser and dab it to make it lighter. So there's nothing wrong with making dark lines. Now, if your lines are too light, that could be a challenge coming back trying to darken them, okay? So just keep that in mind. And as you can see, I'm switching the size and switching between different tools. So it just helps to make your drawing look very versatile, okay? So now I'm about to choose the color to the hands. So we're choosing the best color. All right, and you can make the hands whatever color you want them to be, but I'm simply doing this with the paint dripper and just selecting the closest color I can to the hands. So now, I'm just gonna start by giving it kind of a rough shade first, and we'll go back and add a bit more detail, okay? All right, and some parts that look darker, we're gonna go ahead and make them dark. The parts that look lighter, we're going to go ahead and make them light. It just helps us in the end not have to come back, okay? All right? So we're simply in the coloring process. And if I see that some parts look really light, like looks like the sun is shining on it, I'll just leave it white. So you can see I'm skipping some parts where it's not completely tan like the rest of the hand. It's just because how the light is shining on the hands in the image. So that just helps. All right. And if you want to get finer lines when you're coloring and all of that, just, sharpen. It's good to have at least, I would say, 2 of the same colors. That's simply because you can have one that's more of a dull. So when you want to, just shade straight across, you can do that. And one that's sharper. So if you want to do like detailed lines, then you can use that to do that. And that's with color pencils or anything like that with color that you're going to be using to actually color your drawing, okay? The same thing applies with pencils as well. It's good to have different varieties of them and not just one pencil that you're using. All right. And this is just a simple tip if you're following this tutorial by using it on a regular sketch pad. Don't shade with your finger. That's a no all the way, because the oils from your finger will actually get into the drawing and it'll make it smear, and it doesn't look good at the end, okay? So if you have something as simple like a Q-tip or anything like that that you can use to help you shade, that's good. Don't use your hands though, okay? It just ends up adding oils and unwanted, debris and all that to your picture that you don't need to add, so, all right? So you can see some parts I left white. I'm leaving certain parts white just because it's lighter than the rest, like everything else, okay? And I went around the veins on his hands, and if I did color over the veins, then I'm gonna try and go back and darken those a bit more, but not too dark that it looks like harsh lines, okay? All right. So now it's getting down to the detailed part. So it's a good time to pay attention on this part when you're focusing on the coloring process, because this part can be very tedious, all right? So anything needing to be darkened, then it's going to use the black to do that, or any parts that look dark. Now is a good time. And as you can see prior to, I added a little bit more black to the bottom of the, was it left or right sleeve? And that was just because of how the picture was cropped. It just would have looked weird if I just cut it off. So I just added a bit more shading that way. All right. Now any parts now that you want to darken, like by the fingers, if one part looks darker than the rest, it's a good time now to start doing that. Because now we're getting down to like the overall outcome of the picture, so now is a good time to do that, okay? Darken any lines, anything you need to erase to make it a bit better, and that's good to do now, okay? All right. Trying to move it as smooth as I possibly can, and try and do it step by step so we don't like jump and you be confused at the end. So, right. Trying to see what I want to use next for some of these lines to get the better shade. So now I'm just going back and add a bit more detail on parts that need to be darker. This is like where you use black and all of that. Black or navy blue, whichever color is your preference. All right. And now I'm actually using like a smudge tool, and that's basically almost like an eraser. It's just a lighter eraser, and I'm just dabbing parts that need to be a bit lighter that I had too dark in the beginning. All right. And the swirl tool that I'm using that just gives the lines a wave to them to make it look like the veins in his hands and not just, of course, harsh lines, as I said before, okay? All right, now we're just darkening a few more parts. And the parts that you want to darken, you can use the pencil. But the parts that you want to be colored, try and use a colored pencil, okay? And if you don't have the colors that I'm using in this, you can just do it with the regular pencil. I would suggest you change your reference picture to black and white though when you want to use a regular pencil, okay? That just helps so you can see what lines need to be darker, what lines need to be lighter, and it's black and white, so it's easier than looking at color and trying to duplicate that with just a regular pencil, okay? So that's just a suggestion to make that a bit easier. All right. Try to add as much detail as I can. Parts that need to be darker, make them darker. And as you can see, the more we do this, the more realistic the hands are starting to look. Because we're just going and darkening parts that need to be darkened rather than making the whole thing one color, okay? So now, adding a bit more detail to the overall hand. And when you get to this part, you can give it like a slight brush stroke across your entire drawing, but not too dark, okay? So it doesn't mess up all the work that you put towards now. And you can darken any lines that have gotten hidden from you adding the color. All right. And on your outer lines of the hand, you can get your eraser and just kind of dab. Because you can see how the corners of the hand is not as harsh. So you can do that by just getting an eraser and kind of slightly brushing across the edges of your drawing just to make it go more with the color and make it look more realistic too as well. And now I'm fixing a few errors that I made prior to. So all of this, can be resolved in the beginning of your drawing. But I just wanted to make it look as close as I could to the reference drawing too. So now is a good time for any corrections that you want to be made. And as you can see, I didn't redraw it really dark because I'm coming with the color. And I'm filling in the finger now, the thumb now. So that just helps and not, so that made me not have to go back again and erase it. I just didn't make the line as harsh the second time. And now is a good time to get like a white or a lighter tan. So you can go back and make some parts lighter, okay? And you can do this as well with just an eraser, like I said, okay? So now, some of the parts I made too dark, I'm just going back and erasing them to make them lighter and look as closest to the drawing as I possibly can. And choosing the closest color you can to the reference drawing is very important when you want it to look exactly like your reference drawing, all right? Try not to veer too far away from the color of the reference image unless, that's what you want to do. But if you want it to look as close as you can, then I would suggest you choose the closest color, okay? All right. Just filling in as much as we can without making certain parts too dark. That's very important. All right, going back to our slight kind of whitish tan color. Just filling in certain spots. And you can see that the outcome of the drawing is starting to look more and more realistic the more we just add these few details. Yeah, it may take a little while, but the outcome of it all is, like I said, the most fun part. So, all right. Now, any part that doesn't look straight black, then that's when you can use like a brown. You can see on the sleeve, in between the hands, in certain areas looks more like a brown, not a black. So use that if you want it to look like real hands. Try not to use just dark black for everything that you're shading. Try to use as many different colors as you possibly can too, okay? All right. And gray is always good when you want to make a lighter shade. Gray always works in that way. Gray or a regular pencil. All right, trying to make sure we choose the closest colors we can to the reference drawing. All right. Don't want to just choose a random color, then it just causes double work. Making sure I choose the right tool and all of that. Like I said, the paint dripper in this case is very useful. If you're doing like digital drawing, the paint dripper is good for wanting to catch the exact color of the image, okay? But you just get as close to it as you can, even if you're not using the digital drawing and all of that too, okay? Just trying to make sure I get the closest I can so that it won't be kind of like a regret in the end too, okay? All right. Just trying to get it as close as we can. It may take a bit longer to get the exact colors and everything, but at the end. So now I have chosen the closest of the orange that I can, and now I'm starting to color his sleeve while not making it too harsh, okay? So now I'm going to start by coloring that. Now we're getting down to almost finishing our drawing. Only a few more steps and we'll be done. All right. So as you can see, this kind of orange is like a burnt orange, but it's the closest to this, to the sleeve. So that's the one I kind of decided to use. But you can just use like a regular burnt orange. And if some parts are too dark, then I'm going to go and use my eraser to make them lighter. I'm going to try and square it off so it'll look like the picture. Right. So just erasing the corner to square it off so it'll look like the picture that way. Adding a bit more detail. Now I'm using like a slight airbrush, and that's going to give me a kind of brush stroke on the sleeve. And you can do that with an eraser, just dab. All right. See, and it makes it a bit lighter. Right. And that is pretty much a wrap up of this drawing. And you can go back and add any more detail, so I'm just kind of going around doing that, but it's completely up to you. All right, and that's pretty much it. So that was the outcome of the drawing, and I hope yours turned out excellent. I can't see it from here, but I hope it turned out exactly, how you wanted it to turn out. And I did mention if you are an artist or an individual who wants to get your designs or your pictures or photos or anything like that displayed on t-shirts or mugs or anything like that, like cool paraphernalia kind of gear stuff, you can actually go to www.smicapp.com. And that's SMICAPP.com. And you can actually go over there, and if you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see it says Would Prosper. When you click that, you can go over there and choose from a variety of different products that you can actually put your designs on as well too, okay? So I wanted to make sure that I told you that, but that pretty much wraps it up for the praying hands tutorial. Make sure you all stay tuned and come on back, because every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time, we will be posting new art tutorials, and we'll try and split it up as much as we can. So if we need to split it into different parts, we will. But I want to make sure that I explain it to you all well enough and not, boggle your head with the whole time-lapse deal, because me, myself, that's not how I like to do the drawings, because you can't even see how to do it yourself. So I'm going to try and take you step by step to, help you get the outcome that you want on your drawings as well. And I did want to mention, make sure you all go over and check out, it's an awesome, if you're into biblical art, kind of how I did the praying hands, but these are actually biblical art portraits that you can check out, and that is abamcenter.com. That's ABAM Center, CENTER.com. You go over there, it's actually a biblical arts museum. So they actually have over 150 different multicultural biblical characters. So you all need to check that out as well, and I'll try and play, their commercial for you at the end so you can get a little idea of what they do over there as well. But that is pretty much it. I'm going to wrap it up, and I just want to thank everyone for coming and watching on today and joining, and I hope that your art turned out exactly the way that you wanted it to turn out, and the outcome was cool. So make sure you all stay tuned. Come on back every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. We be seeing different art tutorials that will help you hopefully in bettering your art. So thank you all so much. I have been Z Marie here with Art for Art, Heart for Art Live. Make sure you all come on back, okay? See y'all next time, okay?
The Alabama Biblical Arts Museum, also known as ABAM, is an organization that strives to enrich the nation's cultural heritage through promoting the arts within communities. The ABAM Center has a vast exhibit of over 150 different multicultural biblical characters, and soon to add 20 African kings. One of the main tasks of the museum is to produce educational materials related to biblical studies. Our sophisticated seminars and workshops are designed to give a complete and unbiased historical view of some of the most influential characters in the Bible. To view these exquisite pieces of art, book an exhibition, become an annual supporter, or to adopt a character, simply visit our website at abamcenter.com.